Oh, have you been to Savannah?
I haven't. My partner has.
Okay.
He went down there. He met with Curtis, who's a
Okay.
member of your group. Checked out some of his projects that we've funded. We have a few guys down there that
Okay.
that are pretty high volume investors, but I haven't had the chance yet.
Well, you got to
It's
come down.
I
Everybody in New York's coming down here, especially with
I
COVID and
know.
everything, you
Yeah,
know.
I know. You guys have the climate. Yeah, it's awesome.
So we're live. We're
Awesome.
live, George, and I'm excited, man. We had a chance to meet over the phone a few weeks ago, and I got a good vibe from you, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm kind of like just throwing some stuff out there on the internet. I got a cool little group, and I'd love for you to join us." And you were like, "Let's do it." And so I
Yeah.
appreciate you jumping on here. So George, tell us, the group, myself, a little bit about yourself. How you got into this whole real estate, because it sounds like you were doing some other things before, and you got into
Yeah.
this. And tell us what your company does.
Sure. So I was a lawyer in New York um, for about a year or so out of law school. While I was practicing, I was working with a small firm, mostly a solo practitioner. We were handling everything. I was helping small businesses, startups. I was also doing a lot of landlord tenant work. And then I started getting into residential sales and things like that, representing buyers and sellers. And one of my good friends worked in the mortgage industry. He was a mortgage-backed securities trader. So basically, they buy loans and they sell them on Wall Street. And he just had this idea, where he wanted to be the originator, be the lender, because he was buying from lenders. So he just wanted to kind of like take that place and improve on what he saw in the marketplace. So he came to me asking me for kind of like advice, my thoughts, and kind of the legalities of all of it and how to set it up. And instead of being counsel to him, I decided to try to just jump on and be full time and get into the business because it sounded really interesting and way different than being an attorney. So this was, so my involvement on our end, MoFin, is kind of like the business development side. So my partner, Tyler, he does all of kind of like what's called the capital market side of things. He deals with once a loan closes, what we do with it then. He kind of like manages our portfolio and he also handles the tail end of underwriting and closing process. But yeah, I kind of jumped the gun. But basically, we started about in 2015, 2016. We had this idea of a lender using our own capital to finance these deals that we liked. And instead of kind of being like this archaic bank and making people go through this underwriting process that's grueling and just doing things for the sake of doing things, we try to take a little bit more of a forward thinking approach. We don't have like a clear box or defined idea of what a deal should be. We just take things on a case by case basis. So it takes a little bit more time, but I think in the end, it's why we have such a high, repeat business from customers. Our loans, our business is primarily repeat customers, and I think it's primarily because we take the time and this approach. But yeah, that's kind of like how it all started. Just we saw an opportunity in the market, and we wanted to take it and improve upon it.
And I heard you say you didn't, like, you guys had an idea of just kind of getting into the lending side. Were you flipping before? I mean, as an attorney, a lot of attorneys, their thing is they want to mitigate risk,
Yeah,
and so
sorry, there's a little bit. They're doing some work, some COVID related improvements. But yeah, so no, I never in myself did any sort of investing.
okay.
And my partner did. I didn't. I was just straight out of law school, pretty much. So I was in the professional world for a year and a half before starting this, and I didn't know much, so I had to learn a lot. Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of things to invest in. You know what I mean? Like as far as the SEC regulates it, as far as investing stocks and different. What attracts you? What attracts you and your partner to real estate assets?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We just love the asset, especially. So we started out doing only rental properties. And we just love the asset. We love the fact that, we can underwrite it, pretty straightforward underwriting. It's just based on the cash flow of the property. It's also, backed by, so as a lender, there's a few ways we look at it. Either we take over the property through a foreclosure or whatever it might be and recoup. We could do a deed in lieu, whatever it might be. There's so many exits, there's so many ways to kind of like mitigate risk. So it just seems like a more secure asset than, let's say, stocks or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And especially as a lender, we cast a wide net, right? We don't just lend in Savannah or Atlanta or Georgia. The U.S., the real estate market in the U.S., especially for investment properties, is still $1 trillion market. So there's always pockets of markets that are rising while others are falling. So there's always opportunities for to make money as a lender and as an investor. So that's what we liked.
How has COVID affected you? Because I have friends that are in the business on both sides, right? As lenders and also as borrowers. And so I've even heard on the lending side that things have kind of low key opened up because a lot of other lenders fell off as far as they weren't really, it was some kind of secondary market. Can you talk about that and how
sure.
it maybe affected you and stuff?
Yeah. So us personally, so the way we operate is we have our own capital. So when we lend, it's our own money. We don't go to another bank and ask for, a loan. We don't have a line of credit or a warehouse line that we use to close loans. We use our own capital. And then there's the decision, and my partner probably could speak a little bit more to this, whether or not we keep a loan or we sell a loan. If we keep the loan, we hold it in our own fund, pretty much. If we sell it, we look to the secondary market. We look to investors who buy loans. At one point prior to COVID, we had more loan buyers, more loan investors than we can cater to. Once COVID hit, that disappeared. There still, right now, present day, unfortunately, there are no buyers of these loans. So while opportunities have arisen because there's less and less lenders out there now, because they were using kind of like other people's money to fund loans. But they can't do that anymore because those sources have been frozen. So for us, it's okay because we have our own capital. So we're still able to lend, but we just, in the secondary market, things have not really started back up quite yet. So when we make a loan, there's no liquidity for it really. We have to make that loan with the intention of holding it to maturity. So that's why our terms as of recent have been a little bit more conservative, and we're a little bit, more restrictive on LTC, LTV, the initial upfront amount, the overall, how much we're lending on the overall cost of a project. We look at the ROI on a deal a little bit more than we would have prior to this, just because we have no takeouts for our loans anymore, because that secondary market has pretty much shut down. Hopefully it's going to come back up, but not yet. Oh, sorry. I can't hear you. I don't know why that
Sorry,
is.
that was my fault.
I got you.
I put my mute on. So you guys are actually still lending, but you're just being more cautious, even though because of the fact that you guys have your own funds that you're pulling from. But you're just like, hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to be looking at maybe the borrower more than the asset. The asset's a great thing. We're definitely going to look at that. But do you look at that, or are you kind of like saying, hey, great deal, we'll give you the funds?
Yeah. So right now we're paying a lot more attention to liquidity, just because I think we're kind of projecting that maybe investors are going to be holding on to these projects a little bit longer and not being able to flip them as quick. So we want to make sure that they have the capital to hold them over in those extra months, should they need to extend or whatever it might be. So liquidity is huge. We're also putting a little bit more of an emphasis on credit now, whereas in the past, if you had a 600 score, that's not a problem. If you had a 525 to like 599, we'd still look at you. Now we really want to see a 650 and above, just because we just can't take chances in this market. And we're still doing deals in smaller markets, but we're requiring more skin in the game from the borrower. So
Do you consider us a smaller market?
no, definitely not. Savannah, we love Savannah, and the Savannah area. We think that's a great market, and it's still showing to be pretty strong even through COVID. So we've actually it's one of the markets that we're pretty active in throughout this whole mess and ordeal. Yeah, we've been pretty active in COVID.
Now, I wanted to ask, because you threw out some terms, and we got so many different types of people in the group. We have experienced people that are crushing it, and then we have people that come in and they're like LTC, LV, what'd you say? Tell me, what's the difference between what is LTV and LTC? I know what it is, but
Sure. So LTV they can be somewhat interchangeable, but LTV is the as is value. So loan to as is value is LTV. LTC is loan to total cost, basically your purchase price plus your rehab budget. But also some lenders use LTC as kind of like cost being just your purchase price. So it's kind of confusing. All lenders use it a little bit differently. But for us, I mean, LTV is really like the upfront loan against the value on day one. Right. So that right now we're at like, for experienced investors, we're at like 75 of purchase price or of because usually you do the lower of the two, 75 of purchase price. So right now we're at like 75 of purchase price. So if the as-is value comes in much higher, it doesn't really affect the loan right now, present day, because we're looking more at the market, right, rather than comps, because comps are backwards looking, and the market is present day. Right. So if you're buying something at 100, but an appraisal comes in at 120, 130, that we still might take that into consideration, but it's also important to know, those are comps from 6 months ago or maybe 8 months ago. That's pre-COVID. That completely different world. So when we have investors coming to us saying like, oh, I got a deal with already 30, I'm buying it with like 40K equity, already built in, like great, that's awesome, but we still kind of have to be cognizant of the fact that the market has changed a lot the last few months. So that's kind of like LTV, LTC.
Do you see it changing even more moving forward, or do you kind of see things? There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of different things going on. I don't want to get into all that, but do you see like the real estate market dropping like 40%, like how stocks do? Or
I mean, so like my partner is very in tune with the market. I think he's a better one to opine on this. And with some of my friends in the industry, I mean, so everybody has a different opinion right now. So it's really, I mean, it's anybody's guess. I mean, the thing is that for the last 4 months, people weren't producing, money like they were pre-COVID. So people are tapping into their liquidity. They're leveraging their experience and their relationships to get deals done now. But in 6 months, we don't know what the market's going to look like, because people aren't producing the same. They haven't been producing the same. Unemployment's still pretty high. There's this question of a second wave throughout the whole country. I know some cities and states are still dealing with the height of it. Us in New York City, we're on the downhill now. But yeah, it's really hard to project. I know present day rental markets have been destroyed by this. So a lot of landlords are hurting that are, buy and hold investors in major markets, that is, like New York City and Chicago, Boston, things like that. But yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, I think we've been surprised to see that home prices have stayed the same, and some even have gone up in markets like Savannah and certain markets in Texas. So that's a great sign, and hopefully that trend continues. But it's really hard to say.
Right. It's all a risk.
Yeah, it's all a risk.
That's what we're in that business, right? But how do you mitigate that risk? It's by aligning yourself, with the right people and putting yourself out there and actually taking on those risks. I mean, there's deals that are closing down here from loans that you guys are putting out there which the people are getting probably higher prices than they thought they would, and all that. So,
and capital's more expensive now, right? So capital's a little bit more expensive, so your return might not be as high. So I think it's really important to do your homework and try. And when you set out a scope of work and a budget, like try to hit that. I mean, it's easier said than done. Obviously, everybody wants to, but I think in the past, investors are kind of like loose with that,
right.
But now cost of capital goes up. I mean, you really kind of have to make sure you're on point, because every dollar now really counts, because you just don't know what 4-6 months down the line are going to look like when you're listing this 3 months. Yeah.
So we got some questions, that kind of came up and
Sure.
I'll throw it out there. And I know every borrower situation is different. So it's not a flat thing. I totally understand that. I just want to throw that out there. The best thing to do is put yourself out there. If you're doing deals and you haven't utilized George and MoFin, give them a call, utilize them. I put their website out there, because I always say, if you got a good deal, allow them to sell you no. Allow them, because they're underwriting, they're mitigating risk. Don't flood them. But here's the question: curious what your current terms are for fix and flip loans. What so I guess that's what percentage of purchase price do you fund? So I don't know if that's two questions in one.
Yeah, that's fine. So again, like you said, Corey, it has a lot to do with your particular deal and all that. I would say this is just a range. Someone can get better terms or even worse than what I'm about to say. So it's best to just like you said, reach out. So I would think right now for us, it's about 25% down on purchase. We try to fund the whole rehab, but we do look at how big your rehab budget is. We look at what's called the renovation ratio, like in relation to your purchase price, how big is your rehab budget? So if you're buying for 100 and you're at 50,000 for a rehab budget, that's a 50% rental ratio. That's pretty good. Anything 50% or below, that's pretty good. You'll get 75 and 100 if you have good, decent experience, 2-3 flips done in the last 3 years, 650 FICO and above. Even if you're below that, if it's just due to high utilization, but you have liquidity, things like that, we can take a look and we can still get it done. Rates are 10% and up. So they don't really deviate that much from pre-COVID. But 10 to 11% is really reserved for more basic, non-complex flips. So where you're buying for like 150 and putting 40, 50 into it, you have 3-4 flips done, you have 660 FICO or a 700 FICO, then you might be in that 10 to 11 range. But if you're kind of not there, you're looking more at 11 to 12. And then we charge anywhere between 2.5 to 3 points as the origination fee, us personally, and we don't include any other costs at closing. So for us, it's just an origination fee. We don't add on like legal, underwriting, doc prep, processing fees, things like that. You do pay a $299 application fee. It's just a fee to get started. It covers our costs to underwrite, and then you pay for an appraisal through a third party. We go through an appraisal management company. Basically, they're just an intermediary or kind of like the middleman between us and the appraiser. You pay them directly, and then at closing, it's just our origination fee. So short answer is basically 25, I would say 25, 30% down, 10 to 12 to 12, 13%, and 2.5 to 3 points. Sorry.
And I've heard, especially for people that are used to using banks, let's say they're used to using banks, they haven't really used a hard money lender, they're a little weary of paying up front $299 and this and that, right? I get it. I'm an investor, so I'm like, look, let's get this done. It's not about the cost of money, it's about the availability of it. But what would you say to somebody that they have experience, but they've only used their own money in banks? Would you advise them to say, hey, let's get the application in, let's see what you've done? And let's say they got a 700, it looks like somebody's saying a 700 credit score, they're liquid. You guys aren't going to pay for any of the underwriting, the servicing, the due diligence stuff for the appraisal and all that. But what if that cost is baked in? Would you guys, is that?
So,
I don't know
so
what baked in is.
yeah, no. So like, I think there's in forums and different groups, things like that, there's always people who's like, say, beware of upfront fees. $299, I get it. $300 to throw it away, it doesn't make sense. But the way we operate, you don't pay that until I've reviewed, like personally, usually, or my partner Tyler, we've reviewed your deal. Like I've asked you a ton of questions. Like when Corey and I, when we spoke about your deal, and we went through everything. Even then, I wouldn't ask you after that conversation to pay $299. I would still go back, review things, talk to my partner, get his input. We'd put together a term sheet for you, and the term sheet lays out everything, like even your closing costs. We sometimes even get a quote from a title company, put it in there so you have the whole picture. And if that looks good to you, then you pay the $299 to move forward. And that's refundable, and it's in the term sheet. It talks about how it's refundable. That covers just our underwriting expenses. So we don't nickel and dime you and say like, oh, here's a wire fee. Here's this other report that we ordered that we didn't tell you about. Sometimes we go above that $299, depending on the borrower. If there's 2 guarantors, 2 credit reports, 2 background checks, we order supplemental reports, like, for value maybe, or for whatever it might be. So so I understand the concern with paying an upfront fee, but I think there needs to be an awareness from the investor, from the borrower, to look into who they're dealing with, what they're asking for, what that's going to, is it in writing, stuff like that. But definitely, if you're using your own capital up to this point, which is great, obviously you don't have to worry about anything with regards to like paying fees and going through a process. But using leverage is, you can just look it up and see how you can increase your return, how you can make more money by using leverage. So using a bank or a hard money lender could be way to your advantage. Instead of putting 100K into a deal, you're putting 20K into a deal. So if anything goes wrong, you have that liquidity sitting in the bank to cover you. So it's all about just doing your research and your due diligence on who you're working with. And if it sounds too good to be true, especially now in this market, it's too good to be true. So if someone's telling you, hey, give me a $600 deposit, I'm qualifying you at 10% down or down, and 10% rate at 1 point or whatever, something like that. Yeah, don't do that. You can always, anybody on the chat or whatever can reach out to me and provide me with a term sheet from another lender, and I'll review it and, give my input. So I'm happy to do that. I always tell anybody I speak to, feel free to do that. Use us as a resource.
Absolutely. No, it's huge. You guys are a big resource. And let me ask you this: what makes a good borrower? Because I hear you say, experience, not experience, like somebody that hasn't done a deal. Would you advise them to come to you? I've talked to people where I'm like, hey, if you've never done a deal and you're going to borrow money privately versus a hard money, I'd say, hey, go bring the deal. If you got good credit, the deal looks good, bring the deal to a hard money lender, right? If you got liquidity and all that kind of stuff that we're talking about, and maybe you guys might loan 75%, then go to the private people and maybe bring some skin to the game like that. And that will make you feel more comfortable, because you're looking for ways to say no, I'm assuming, on most of these things.
Yeah. Yes and no. I want to say yes always, because I love just getting deals done and getting deals in the pipeline. Good thing I have my partner who's very risk averse and has a much more detail oriented eye. But yeah, end of the day, I am always trying to poke holes and see where are the red flags, like what's going on here. Always, that's our job, and we try to do that up front. So that's what I try to do up front, because I don't want to get a loan in, pay that $299, go through the process, and then a week later we're like, oh, we can't get this done, sorry, because that just wastes our time, wastes your time. But the perfect borrower, like you said, if they have no experience, right now it's tough to get a deal done. But in the perfect scenario, if someone comes to me and they're purchasing something, 100K and up, and the rehab budget's like 20% of their purchase price or 30% of their purchase price, and they have liquidity to put maybe a little bit more down, and they have good credit, we would look at that. We would definitely look at that and consider it. Their terms might reflect that they're a new borrower, so they might need to, at closing, put what's called an interest reserve, which is kind of a new thing now post-COVID, where you're prepaying interest pretty much. I mean, the interest is not earned until that month comes up, right? But at closing, if you have like a 6-month interest reserve, 6 loan payments are put in escrow and paid for you each month. If you sell the property in month 5, you get that last month back. If you sell the property month 4, you get the 2 months back. It's not a prepayment penalty or anything like that. It's just to cover us, to make sure we have a little bit more security on this loan. So that's just one thing. You might have to put 5% more down. The rate might be closer to 12. But yeah, I mean, it's not an articulate way of saying, but it kind of sucks for the investor because you're not getting as great terms. But you have your foot in the door with a hard money lender or a private lending company, who has, like us, who have their own capital, can make their own decisions. So when you come to us on the next one, and we've seen you've done one, the terms are going to be much more advantageous. And not only that, if you come to us with we've done a few with you and you come to us with something outside the box that nobody else will do, we might consider doing it because we control our own money and we're the decision maker. So that's kind of like the benefit of, taking those bad terms. Get your foot in the door. It makes you more attractive to us, but then it also makes you more attractive to our competitors as well. So because private money guys are not as institutional, so the terms aren't the same as they are with institutional lenders like us that sell in the secondary market. Because private money guys might give you 100% of the deal, and have some sort of arrangement with you. So, but then you're going to kind of get a shock when you go back because a lot of times what we hear from investors is that, my private guy won't do this anymore. It's, they can't do it. They don't know that market. The purchase price is too high for them, whatever. We're much more open than the private money guy is. So, yeah.
No, it's so true. So, I'm a big believer of raising capital. It's something that I'm always trying to get better at, and utilizing hard money, I'm realizing is very, very important because you guys can pull a trigger in what, 24 to 48 hours if we're in bed and we're doing deals and us, right?
Pre-COVID, we've gotten deals in on a Monday or Tuesday and closed them that same week. Right now, title companies are taking longer. Appraisers are taking longer. Even sometimes we'll get what's called a BPO instead of an appraisal, a broker's price opinion instead of a full appraisal. Even those are taking a little bit longer. So right now, yeah, we're still quick, but it's not as quick as pre-COVID until things kind of calm down. But yeah, we're super quick. I mean, it's not like a bank process where you're waiting weeks and weeks. I mean, like I said, we've closed the deal same business week.
Absolutely. So, how does somebody get approved? What does that look like? I know it's on the frequently asked questions, but people like video too.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just either go through our website, which we're updating now to kind of reflect the new terms and everything like that. So that should be live in like a week or 2 weeks. Just easily call me. That's the easiest way. Just call me and we'll go through the deal. Don't worry about having all the info when you call me. I'll know what we're looking for. So if you don't have it, I'll ask you for it. But that's the easiest way. Just call or email me and you'll get an answer pretty quickly. Especially calling me is easiest.
This is my first time using this. Do you have
cool.
it? Do you do any flips to hold loans for BRRRR investors? Can you talk about that?
Sure. So there's no one loan that will take you from kind of like the short-term bridge to a 30-year or long-term right now. I think some lenders are trying to work on something like that. But right now, what we were doing pre-COVID was we'll do a bridge loan, which is a short-term interest-only loan where we're funding like 75 of purchase, 100 of rehab. Once you're done with that and you have a renter in, we'll do an updated appraisal and we'll refi you into a 30-year loan. And we'll drop a lot of the fees to do that. So like it'll save you like 50% to stay with us and do that. So that's kind of like what we were doing that quite a bit before COVID. Right now, 30-year financing has really kind of disappeared. there's not many lenders out there offering 30-year money right now. And those who are extremely restrictive. I mean, we talk to our competitors, and we know what kind of like what they're offering and stuff like that. So the ones that are offering 30-year money, the rates are going to be like in the sevens, and it's not going to be a fixed rate right now. Predominantly, 5/1 ARMs, 7/1 ARMs, and very restrictive on LTV. So usually what we've seen a lot are staying at like 65, 70 purchase and refis. So yeah, but we did have that. So right now that's kind of on pause because we don't do the 30-year loan right now, but we're hoping in the next 2-3 weeks that comes back. The secondary market starts buying those again, and we could do that.
And that doesn't mean that we can't, that's why I established a relationship with you. Even though that's going on with you guys, I was like, hey, let's talk, because right now I feel, this is my own opinion, is that there's still going to be deals out there, especially in the Savannah market, because everybody from New York that isn't a millennial, like George and myself, you're a millennial,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
George and myself are moving down here, and they're putting all their stuff in storage, and they're selling their stuff, and they're they're kicking it down here in the Southeast. So I think it doesn't hurt to talk to George and get the ball rolling, because you want to be prepared. When a deal comes, you want to be prepared to be able to pounce on that deal. You don't want to be scrambling and have all your documents everywhere and all that kind of stuff. Get the stuff in, let them tell you yes, let them tell you no, especially if you're serious and committed to getting some of your wealth built, and getting your portfolio built out. Now, you talked earlier, you said some of your rates were like 10, 11, 12%. Now, people are hearing this, right? Some people aren't they're not doing as many deals maybe. I mean, let's call it what it is. You're more expensive than a lot of banks. Okay. Why work with you versus like a conventional bank?
Yeah. So conventional banks don't really do this type of lending, right? That's one. And if they do, it's far and few between that do like a distressed property. Like where most deals are had is, something that's kind of like dilapidated, off market deal that doesn't look great, needs a lot of work. Banks won't really touch those at the outset. They will on the refi, but usually when it's in that bad shape, they won't do it. They just won't. Also, even if they would do it, let's say a community bank or whatever it is, portfolio lender local to you, is okay with doing that. I mean, our process, we're not a bank. We're a niche lender. We're created specifically only for investment properties. So it's like going to a generalist for something that requires a specialist, right? That's kind of like how we look at it. So we're the specialist. That's why we're created, is just for investment property financing. So if an issue pops up that's unique to kind of like a fix and flip situation, we're ready to kind of handle that. We've seen it. We've been in the market for 4 years now lending. So we're pretty savvy as it comes to investment property financing. So that's what I would say. Even though we're more expensive, this is what we do. This is our bread and butter. We don't do anything else. We just finance investment properties. That's all we look every day. That's all we look at.
You guys are just underwriting deals, looking at deals, looking at properties. No, you want that type of person on your team. Want that type of person on your team. And that's, I think it's very, very important. Now, would you guys, I heard you say it, sometimes you do lend 100% on the rehab, and sometimes a little bit less, depends and things like that. I know things have changed, but do you do a draw in advance, or do you do a draw in arrears?
It's in arrears, always. It also depends on kind of like what stage you're coming to us. We have had a ton of deals where the investor has already purchased a property in cash, and now they need money for the rehab. In that situation, we might try to do, if there's enough equity in the property, if the value is high enough when we get it appraised, we might do an initial funding amount when we close our loan. So like you've already bought the property, let's say for $100,000, you bought it for $100,000. It appraises for $100,000. Let's say you need $40K for the rehab. At closing of our loan, we might give you, $5K or $10K to net at closing to get you started. and then that 40K rehab will be there as well in arrears. But yeah, usually most lenders will do it in arrears. There's some who try to do it upfront, kind of as like a marketing tactic, I guess, to bring more people in. But end of the day, you should have the liquidity to get the project going. So if someone's coming to us and they're in a position where they need that initial draw upfront to get going for whatever reason, that's probably not a deal we're going to get into. It just doesn't make sense to stretch yourself thin, especially right now. It just does not make sense with all the uncertainty in the market. Obviously, there's always risk, but right now it's amplified. So yeah.
Yeah, like as a borrower, I'm assuming you don't want me to lose. You want me to win. You want me to make money so that I can keep saying, "Hey, let's do more stuff together."
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you're off on your numbers, I'm off on my numbers, and we all have a negative bank account on that project, it's not fun.
No point.
Yeah,
there's no
fun.
point.
Let's go do something else.
Repeat borrowers, repeat business. That's how we've grown so much.
So who are you looking for? What type of borrower are you looking for? Yeah, we got the credit and this and that, but what, like Curtis? We had him on the show. I know he's probably an excellent borrower, because he's done quite a bit of projects. But tell me, like, the type of borrower you're looking for. Somebody who's doing one deal, or maybe somebody who's doing a long-term type of thing. Like, who are you looking for?
I think we're looking for both, really. I love the person who's done one at least and comes to us, because a lot of our investors came to us when they've only done one or two. I mean, and they've learned the process with us. James, who also is on our team, one of our employees, who does a lot of the underwriting, but also is awesome at the draw process on the construction side. He kind of like guides the investor, the borrower through that. And once they get a handle of it, and they kind of get more experience, not only on their end as an investor, but also on the financing end, now they're equipped to do more and more, and they grow, and they've grown with us. So, if you've only done one or even zero, but you have your stuff in line, like you were saying before, you have your liquidity, your credit looks good. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to, point that out. We're happy to take a look and work with you, because we're not a huge company. We're not like, if you've heard of like Lending Home or Lima One or Lending One, we're not like that. We don't have a huge team. So we enjoy working with small investors, and we have high volume investors who are doing like 200 deals a year. And it's great to work with both, really.
That's good to hear. Because we have such a wide range of people in the group. I always like to make sure that we cater to both ends, because we have experienced people that are like, why should I listen to this? And then we have people that are like not experienced. They've never done a deal, that are like, why should I listen to this? So it's good to hear that, because I think at the end of the day, no matter what, you want to have a good. And let me ask you this. It's called hard money. Is it that hard to get?
No. Well, pre-COVID, it was should have been called easy money, because people were just handing it out. Even our competitors were just like handing it out, offering terms that were just absolutely absurd. And a lot of them got burned on a lot of stuff, unfortunately. But yeah, so right now I would say hard money is okay, because it is getting difficult to get now. But I think it's hard money because it's based on the hard asset being the property. But
there we go. And that's the biggest thing, is that, think about it. A bank won't even give a business a loan. They funnel you through the SBA.
Yeah.
But for a tangible asset like a house, like a property, they're going to give you a mortgage. They'll back that. And so that's powerful, because I can't go to the bank and get 200 grand for stocks and put 20% down or whatever, but I can with a property, a rental property, and things like that. So you guys do rental properties. You guys do the whole BRRRR strategy. I know I said that earlier, but I want to make sure that I say rental properties. You guys also help investors build out their portfolio, their wealth tool, to build out passive income. By giving them loans on single family assets. But do you guys do multifamily and commercial as well?
So again, this is pre-COVID. Things might change. Before, we were doing 1 to 4 units, a 30-year fixed. We can do, single loan, single property. We could also cross collateralize and do portfolio loans where you're bundling, let's say 5 properties under one loan. The advantage of doing a portfolio loan usually is that the lender will lower their minimum loan amount. So on a single loan, single property, let's say $75K minimum loan amount. On a portfolio loan per property, it could be like $50K or $60K, $65K, whatever it might be. So that's the benefit of doing a portfolio loan. Also, it's easier for you maybe on the accounting side as an investor just to have one loan, all these properties. And before COVID, we were doing also 5 to 9 units on 30-year, which is kind of unique. Not many lenders were doing that. But now, that long-term product has kind of been put on pause. We also do ground up construction. So we can do ground up, we can do commercial, like office space, retail, industrial, light industrial warehouses. We could do that on a bridge loan, on a 12 to 36 month interest only loan. And we can do mixed use, same thing on a bridge. We could do mixed use. Also, land, we kind of shy away from land acquisition loans unless it's in a major market. Then we might look at it.
Yeah,
or
if I had something in San Francisco, you might be like, hey,
if it's in somewhere in Brooklyn or Manhattan or we might look at it. But if you do own the land and you want to build, we can do a ground up construction loan. And yeah.
Now, what I know this is probably easier to say, but I think it's important. Who are you not looking for, as far as not just investors, but just like people to call you and stuff like that? Like, I just want to make sure people have their stuff together before they give you a call. And what type of borrower are you not looking for?
I would say anybody who whoever has the idea that they don't have without liquidity. So usually the number one barrier, kind of like the number one hurdle that people don't get through is liquidity. So they're coming to us and, they're either thinking, okay, I'll get a loan from somebody else for the down payment, or I don't know, use someone else's money, a private investor, to come in and just give me the money on a side agreement with him. I'll invest that and then split the profits with him. We can't do anything there. Even pre-COVID, we want to see that the down payment is coming from you, because then you have skin in the game. There's something holding you back from just walking away. So that's the number one thing. And then anybody with, if you have issues with your credit history, like major issues, like a foreclosure or bankruptcy, or accounts that are past due, and you haven't kind of addressed those yet, and it's in the last year or two, you need to address that before trying to apply for financing, regardless of whether it's us or anybody else. But people like that, I'm happy to talk to, because that's just maybe something that they weren't aware of, because a lot of hard money lenders out there kind of say no credit check or no emphasis on credit, things like that. But end of the day, if you want to work with like a reputable company, they're going to look at your credit and they're going to care a little bit, because that kind of shows your credit worthiness, right? That shows your ability to make payments on time and handle debt. So that's while it's not the emphasis, it's an important thing, because we don't know you when you call us. We don't know you. These are just market proven ways to underwrite, and so those are important. So I'm happy to talk to people when they kind of don't understand, but then there are people who do understand and try to come to us and get terms that just aren't market, like, put 10% down, asking for 8%, 9% rate. This is not really a negotiation. To an extent, it's not. These are our terms for a reason. We've been doing this for quite some time, so we have sort of laid out the groundwork for where you fall in. But yeah.
No, and that's cool. I really wanted to point that question out, because I even seen, call George. If not George, call some hard money lenders. If you're new to this, don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
No,
and I want, because he's not looking for people. He's actually his answer was, I'll help anybody, even those people, because the things that you can fix once you get off the phone and you understand the process a little bit more. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, because I see in the group a lot of people are looking for different ways to find, and everybody has their own ways of doing their deals, right? So I'm not telling somebody you have to do it this way, but it's a resource for Savannah. You're already lending to borrowers here in the Savannah market. Savannah market's a great market. I'm pretty happy with the market here, and George has him and a team that can help you get better in this game, of real estate. And if you're not using, a hard money lender and you're using your own funds, really think about the word and infinite return. Think
Yeah.
about that, because that's super powerful. And leverage is definitely what it's a super powerful tool to use. What are some, before we get off, I know you got to go, but what are some of your long-term goals, in this lending real estate whole world? Are you guys, hey, COVID hit, are you guys looking to get out of the game now? Like, are you guys actually, looking to kind of full speed ahead? Like, what's going on over at MoFin?
So there was a thought to kind of like pivot and be kind of like equity partners in deals rather than be the debt, which is something that's attractive, of course. Actually be partners to investors. But I think at the end of the day, we know the debt side of things really well. So instead of kind of looking to switch paths, we've just expanded on what we'll lend against. So, we're doing deals currently that we would never have considered prior to COVID. We're instead of kind of like closing and becoming narrow-minded, we're taking a more conservative approach when we lend, but we've expanded kind of like what we'll lend against. So that's what we've taken with the approach. Long term, ideally we obviously like to grow with regards to how much we're doing each month. Maybe go up in loan amount. Average, maybe if the average loan size last year was like the upper 100s, increase that. That's kind of like our goal. But I think it's also, get into different asset classes, like get a little bit more on the commercial side, multifamily side, which we're starting to see a lot more now, just because we're pivoting a little bit more from doing fix and flip or straight doing fix and flip and straight rental properties. We're looking more at commercial deals now, multifamily deals, ground up. We're looking at some land stuff, that all this stuff we wouldn't not have considered prior. Yeah, so just like an organic growth, really. We like what we're doing. We're very happy. We have a good team. We enjoy this every day. It doesn't feel like a job. So that, that's just keep that going as long as we can, really.
Awesome, man. And how can we get in touch with you? Like, what are some ways that we can contact you? And of course, like, I know you're in the group. If people have questions and stuff like that, can they hit you up on Facebook? I know, some people don't like talking on Facebook, but
Oh, I don't care. If they don't mind what I post, feel free to check my Facebook out. It's nothing political, it's just weird stuff. I'm a weird fella. But no, yeah, they can hit me up on Facebook. The only issue with that is sometimes it goes to the spam thing and I don't get notified. So I think calling the MoFin line goes directly to me, or emailing me at george@mofinloans.com. I think that's probably the quickest way. Emailing or calling.
What's the MoFin number? Do you know?
It's 866-900-6634. So it's 866-900 and then MoFin on your keypad, or George at MoFin Loans. Yeah, that's pretty much the easiest way. Like I said, the number goes directly to my phone, or if you email me, you'll have my contact information, my signature. And yeah, feel free. I mean, anybody can feel free to just hit me up with anything, any questions they have, any scenarios. Happy to provide any sort of info. And this is genuine. Like, if I think there's another lender that will do it, maybe at better terms, I'm happy to tell you that and let you know who to work with, instead of you going to some of these other lenders who might not have a great reputation but are very good at marketing, and know how to pull in newer people to the newer to the hard money space people. They know how to capture them. I'd rather tell you, these are like the 5 other guys that I would work with if you're not going with us. So it's not like our way or that's it. I'm happy to provide any other info to help you get this thing going.
Awesome. Well, George, man, I appreciate you so much jumping on here, spending, you know, a few minutes, of your time, a good hour. We talked about some things, and I think we broke down some really cool things. Anything else you want to add to the group that you want to throw out there before we end the broadcast?
No, I think this is great. Like I said, when we spoke, I thought it was awesome what you've got going on. And then once I heard Curtis was involved, I was sold. So I think everybody should hit up Curtis as well and ask him for his
Absolutely.
real estate tips. What are his go-to rules? Ask Curtis. He's our golden. I call him our golden pony. He's our unicorn. He's actually one of our first borrowers. So one of the first MoFin borrowers, and we've been working with him ever since. So I mean, he's actually a great person to talk to if you want to learn about how we operate and what he thinks about us. I don't pay him anything to say whatever he says, so go for it. Talk to Curtis.
Absolutely. No, Curtis is a wealth of information, a good friend of mine, and been on the show, whatever this show is called, the
It doesn't
whatever,
have a name.
it's just, no, I just kind of just started doing it. I just kind of just started doing it randomly. So, but no, Curtis is going to be on more. We're going to bring him part of everything he enjoys, as long as we can pay him, give him some good beers. No, I'm kidding. Curtis is out there. He's probably at a property right now.
Yeah,
doing
he
his
is
thing,
definitely.
so.
Yeah, he's
But
definitely.
I'm going to go ahead and end this.